My heart stopped in that Sarasota community center, my body crumbling as the doctors begged my son Brian to come. He didn't. Instead, my daughter-in-law, Jessica, sneered on Instagram. Finally, a night free from the drama queen. The betrayal cut deeper than any pain I've ever known. So, I made one call to shatter their lies. If this rage feels familiar, smash that subscribe button and tell me where you're watching from. The sterile hum of Sarasota General's fluorescent lights drilled into my skull as I lay on that stiff hospital gurney, an IV needle pinching my arm. My chest still throbbed from the heart palpitations stress-induced, the doctor had said, like my body was screaming a truth I'd buried for years. At 65, I thought I'd seen pain, but nothing prepared me for this. Scrolling through Instagram to distract myself, I saw it. Jessica's post, tagged with my name, like a cruel slap. A photo of my son Brian, grinning smugly at my dining table, Emily giggling beside him, and Jessica, glowing in the seat I used to call mine. The caption, "Family night is so much better without the drama queen. Number peace at last." My breath caught, sharper than any chest pain. They were in my house, celebrating while I lay here, alone, forgotten. I stared at that screen, the words burning into me. Better without the drama queen? I'd given them everything: my home, my trust. My love after Robert's death left me hollow. 4 years ago, Brian had said, "Mom, you can't rattle around this big house alone. Let us move in just for a bit." I believed him. I thought it was care. Now, I saw the truth. They'd erased me from their perfect little family portrait. The nurse's voice broke through. "Mrs. Thompson, is your son picking you up?" I forced a smile, my voice steady despite the ache. "Number? I'll call a cab." But inside something snapped. I wasn't just a patient. I was a mother betrayed. The hospital's antiseptic smell clung to my clothes as I sat in the cold, sterile lobby of Sarasota General, waiting for a cab I shouldn't have needed. My phone burned in my hand, Jessica's Instagram post still glaring at me. Brian's smug grin, Emily's innocent laugh, and that vicious caption, "Family night is so much better without the drama queen. Number peace at last." My chest tightened, not from the heart palpitations this time, but from a betrayal so raw it felt like a blade twisting in my gut. They weren't just ignoring me. They were celebrating my absence, feasting in my house, the one Robert and I had spent 30 years paying off, the one filled with memories of birthday cakes and Christmas mornings. And Brian, my only son, knew I was here. The hospital had called him 30 minutes before Jessica's post went live. He'd chosen a cozy dinner over his mother's hospital bed. The realization hit like a freight train. I wasn't family to them anymore. I was an inconvenience. 4 years ago, when Robert's cancer finally took him, I was a wreck. The house felt like a mausoleum, every corner echoing his laughter, his bad jokes, his warmth. Brian had been my anchor then, stopping by daily with Jessica and Emily, bringing takeout from that little diner on Main Street, checking if I'd eaten. "Mom," he'd said one evening, sitting on the porch swing where Robert and I used to watch sunsets, "you can't stay in this big house alone. It's not good for you." Jessica had chimed in, her voice dripping with fake concern. "All these memories, Maggie. It must be so hard." I'd nodded, grateful, thinking they cared. So when Brian suggested they move in temporarily to help me out, I said yes. It made sense. Emily could stay in her school district, I'd have family close, and I could downsize to a small apartment nearby. Just a year, Jessica had promised, her smile so sweet I'd believed every word. Until we save up for our own place. But that was the lie that started it all. Within months, they'd taken over the house. My furniture was shoved into the garage, replaced by Jessica's sleek, modern decor. My mail started going to their address. Brian said it was to help manage my affairs. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment 3 miles away, paying $1.200 a month in rent while they lived mortgage-free in my 4-bedroom home. Every time I brought up their plans to move out, there was an excuse. Brian's job was unstable. Jessica needed stability for Emily. I'd nod, swallow my doubts, and tell myself I was being a good mother. But good mothers don't end up alone in a hospital while their son throws a party in their own dining room. I stared at Jessica's post again, the likes piling up 47, 48, 49. My cousin Ellen had even commented, "Looks so peaceful," with a heart emoji. Peaceful. Because I wasn't there. The nurse approached, her clipboard in hand. "Mrs. Thompson, is your son coming to get you?" Her voice was gentle, but it felt like another stab. I forced my lips into a tight smile, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "Number, I'll take a cab." But as I said it, something broke free, a spark of rage I hadn't felt since Robert's diagnosis. When I'd screamed at the doctors for giving us false hope. I wasn't going to be their doormat anymore. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Linda Carter. I said when my old friend, a real estate agent, picked up. "It's Maggie Thompson. I want to sell the house on Palm Avenue. List it now." Linda's voice crackled with surprise. "Maggie, are you sure? That's your family's home." I cut her off, my tone sharp as glass. It stopped being my home the second they called me a drama queen while I was fighting to breathe. Linda paused. Then her voice hardened with understanding. "I'll be at your apartment tomorrow morning with the paperwork. And Maggie, bring your fighting spirit. We're going to need it." As I hung up, I felt the weight of 4 years of blindness lifting. This wasn't just about a house. It was about reclaiming my life from the people who'd stolen it. And as I stepped into that cab, I knew the real storm was just beginning. The next morning, I sat in my cramped one-bedroom apartment in Sarasota, the weight of Jessica's Instagram post still crushing my chest. That caption, "Family night is so much better without the drama queen," looped in my mind like a taunt. My coffee grew cold as I stared at the phone. The hospital discharge papers crumpled beside me. I'd told Linda Carter to list my house, but the fire in my gut told me this was bigger than a cruel social media jab. I needed answers. When Linda arrived, her usual sunny demeanor was gone, replaced by a grim determination. She wasn't alone. Susan Hayes, her attorney friend, followed, clutching a thick folder that looked heavier than my grief ever had. "Maggie," Linda said, her voice low, "we need to talk about your finances. Susan pulled your credit report last night." I braced myself, expecting bad news, but nothing could have prepared me for the betrayal that spilled out. Susan spread the documents across my tiny kitchen table, her eyes sharp with urgency. "Maggie, there's a $100,000 home equity loan taken out in your name 6 months ago. Did you authorize it?" My stomach lurched. "No," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I haven't signed anything like that since Robert died." Susan's lips tightened. "That's not all. There are 4 credit cards you never opened, with balances totaling $50,000, all linked to your Palm Avenue address. And here's the kicker. The contact number on every account is Brian's cell phone." My son's name hit like a punch. Brian, my boy who'd brought me soup after Robert's funeral, who'd promised to take care of me. He'd done this? I grabbed the papers, my hands shaking as I scanned the numbers. Charges for a $10,000 Bahamas cruise last summer, when I'd spent Thanksgiving alone with a frozen turkey dinner. $5,000 for designer handbags from a boutique in Miami. Time-stamped the same day I was in the ER, gasping for air. $3,000 monthly for a yacht club membership I'd never heard of. Every line was a stab, proof of a life of luxury funded by my name while I scraped by on a fixed income, paying rent for this shoebox apartment. "They've been living like kings," I said, my voice cracking with rage. "In my house, with my money." Susan nodded, her expression grim. "There's more, Maggie. I found inquiries from elder law firms on your credit report. Multiple ones, all within the last year." They're building a case to declare you incompetent, likely to gain control of your assets. The room spun. Incompetent? Me? The woman who'd raised Brian, balanced a household budget for 30 years, and buried her husband without falling apart? I thought of Jessica's smug caption, Brian's absence at the hospital, and the pieces clicked into place. This wasn't just neglect. It was a calculated plan to strip me of everything: my home, my savings, my dignity. How long have they been doing this? I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of fury and heartbreak. Susan flipped through her folder. The loan was taken out 6 months ago, but the mail redirection started 4 years ago, right after Robert's death. They've been intercepting your bank statements, credit offers, everything. You didn't see it because they made sure you didn't. I sank into my chair, the weight of 4 years crashing down. 4 years ago, Brian had sat on my porch, his voice soft with concern. Mom, let us handle the mail. You're grieving. You don't need the stress. I'd thanked him, thinking it was love. Now I saw it for what it was, a trap. They'd moved into my house, redirected my mail, and used my grief as a cover to bleed me dry. What else did they take? I asked, dreading the answer. Susan hesitated, then slid another document toward me. A personal loan for $30,000, also in your name, taken out last year. Payments are being made from an account at their address. An account you never opened. I wanted to scream, to throw the papers across the room, but all I could do was whisper, my own son. Linda reached for my hand, her voice steady. Maggie, we can fight this. But we need to move fast. The house sale is just the start. Susan's ready to file criminal charges for identity theft and fraud. I nodded, my rage hardening into resolve. Do it, I said. And make it quick. As Susan packed up her papers, she added, there's one more thing. These elder law inquiries, they're not just about money. They're preparing to take control of your life. The words hung in the air, cold and heavy. I thought of Emily, my granddaughter, caught in the middle of this. What kind of lies had they fed her? I needed to know how deep this betrayal ran, and I wouldn't stop until every secret was dragged into the light. That night, alone in my Sarasota apartment, the glow of my phone screen felt like the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. The sting of Jessica's Instagram post, "Family night is so much better without the drama queen," was raw. But Susan's revelations about the $100,000 home equity loan and the fraudulent credit cards had torn my world apart. I couldn't sleep. My heart, still fragile from the palpitations, pounded as I opened Instagram again. Not to torture myself, but to understand. How had I missed this? How had my own son, Brian, and his wife, Jessica, turned me into a stranger in their lives? What I found in that sleepless hour was worse than any financial betrayal. It was proof they'd erased me, piece by piece, from our family. I scrolled through Jessica's profile, each post a fresh wound. A 4th of July barbecue at my house, with neighbors I'd known for decades, laughing under string lights I'd hung with Robert. I wasn't there. A photo of Emily at her school's spring talent show, her face beaming as she held a certificate. I'd never been told it happened. Comments under a family beach trip to Siesta Key, my favorite beach, read, "Looks like you guys are thriving. Where's Maggie?" Jessica's reply, "Oh, she's not up for outings anymore. Prefers her quiet time." Quiet time? I'd spent that weekend alone, wondering why Emily hadn't called to tell me about her summer plans. Every post was a lie, painting me as a frail, reclusive widow who'd chosen to fade away. They'd crafted a narrative, and I'd been too trusting to see it. Then came the text that broke me. Judy, my friend of 20 years from the Sarasota Book Club, messaged me at 1 a.m., "Maggie, I heard about the hospital. Brian told us you've been struggling, maybe with dementia. Is it true?" Dementia. The word hit like a sledgehammer. Brian had told Judy, Judy, who'd seen me organize charity drives and balance budgets just last year that I was losing my mind. I called her, my voice shaking with fury and hurt. Judy, who told you I have dementia? She hesitated, her voice soft. Brian stopped by the club last month. Said you've been confused, forgetting things, acting erratic. He said they're worried about you. Worried? They weren't worried. They were poisoning my life, turning my friends against me, making sure no one would question their control. I hung up, tears burning my eyes, and kept scrolling. The final blow was Emily's 13th birthday party, posted 3 weeks ago. A pastel-themed bash in my backyard, with a bouncy castle and a cake I'd have baked myself if I'd known. A friend had commented, "No Grandma Maggie this year?" Brian's reply, "Mom's been too demanding lately. We kept it small for Emily's sake." Demanding? I'd spent that day knitting Emily a scarf, thinking she'd forgotten to invite me. I wasn't demanding. I was invisible. They'd thrown a party in my own home and erased me from it, convincing everyone it was my fault. The pain was unbearable, a hollow ache deeper than Robert's death. Because this wasn't loss, it was betrayal by the people I'd loved most. I clutched my phone, my sobs echoing in the silent apartment. For 4 years, I'd blamed myself for feeling out of place, for the awkward visits, the missed calls. I'd thought I was the problem, too needy, too grieving. But it wasn't me. Brian and Jessica had orchestrated this, isolating me while they lived off my money, my home, my trust. They'd told the world I was fading, fragile, incompetent, all to justify their theft. I thought of Emily, my sweet granddaughter, caught in their lies. What had they told her about me? Did she believe I'd abandoned her? The thought of losing her too was a knife to the heart. But in that darkness, a spark of rage flickered. I wasn't done. I wasn't the frail widow they'd painted. I dialed Linda Carter's number, my voice steady despite the tears. "Linda, it's Maggie. I need you and Susan at my place first thing tomorrow. They've taken more than my money. They've taken my life." Linda's voice was firm. "We're on it, Maggie. Get some rest. You're going to need your strength." As I hung up, I knew this was only the beginning. They'd tried to erase me, but I was about to fight back, and they'd never see it coming. The morning sun barely pierced the blinds of my Sarasota apartment, but inside, a fire was raging. The weight of Jessica's Instagram post, the $100,000 home equity loan, the fraudulent credit cards, and the lies about my supposed dementia had shattered my heart. But that sleepless night, scrolling through their calculated erasure of me from Emily's life, had forged something new. Resolve. I wasn't the frail widow Brian and Jessica had painted to the world. I was Maggie Thompson, the woman who'd rebuilt her life after Robert's death. And I wasn't going to let them steal my dignity. When Linda Carter and Susan Hayes arrived at 8 a.m., their faces were as steely as mine. "Maggie," Susan said, spreading legal documents across my table. "We're filing charges for identity theft and fraud today. The house goes on the market by noon." I nodded, my voice steady. "Do it, and make it hurt." Linda, her eyes glinting with the ferocity of our old PTA fundraising days, pulled out her laptop. "The Palm Avenue house will have buyers lining up by tomorrow. Cash offers, Maggie. You're getting out clean." But clean wasn't enough. I wanted justice. Susan handed me a draft of the criminal complaint. "Identity theft, forgery, elder abuse," she said. "The evidence is airtight bank records, forged signatures, their phone number on every account." I gripped the pen, signing the papers with a hand that didn't shake. "They thought they could bury me," I said. "Let's see how they like being exposed." By 10 a.m., my phone buzzed with Brian's name. I let it go to voicemail, his voice dripping with panic. "Mom, what's this about selling the house? Some realtor called us. This is crazy, call me back." I didn't. An hour later, Jessica called, her tone sharp and accusing. I answered on the third ring, my voice cold as ice. Hello, Jessica. She didn't waste time. Maggie, what the hell? A realtor says you're selling our home? This is a scam. I laughed, a bitter sound that surprised even me. Your home? The deed's in my name, Jessica. Always has been. You don't own a single brick. Silence stretched, thick with her shock. But we've been maintaining it, she sputtered. We painted the upstairs, fixed the roof. With my money, I shot back. The $100,000 loan you took in my name. The credit cards you opened while I paid rent. Don't play victim with me. Brian's voice cut in. She'd put me on speaker. Mom, you can't do this. You're ripping our family apart. The hypocrisy burned. Our family? I said, my voice rising. You ripped it apart when you left me in the hospital. When you posted about your peaceful night while I fought to breathe. You don't get to call that family. The line went quiet, but I heard Emily in the background asking, Is Grandma okay? My heart clenched. They were using her, my sweet granddaughter, as a shield for their lies. That afternoon, Emily showed up at my door, her eyes red, clutching a small suitcase. Grandma Maggie, she sobbed. Mom says we'll be homeless because of you. My rage faltered, replaced by a piercing ache. Jessica and Brian had stooped to a new low, sending a 3-year-old to manipulate me. I knelt, pulling her into a hug. Sweetheart, you're not going anywhere. You're staying with me. Her tears soaked my shoulder. They said you don't want us happy anymore. I cupped her face, my voice soft but firm. Emily, they've been lying. To you, to me, to everyone. I'm selling the house because they've been stealing from me. But I promise, you'll always have a home with me. I walked her back to their car, where Brian and Jessica waited. Brian rolled down the window, his face pale. Mom, don't do this to Emily. I leaned in, my voice a low growl. Don't you dare use your daughter as a pawn. You've stolen $150,000 from me, Brian. If you ever pull this again, I'll add child endangerment to the charges I filed this morning. Jessica gasped, but I didn't flinch. You're done controlling me. I took Emily's hand and led her back to my apartment, her small fingers trembling in mine. As the door closed behind us, Susan called with an update. Maggie, the DA's office is moving fast. The evidence is overwhelming, but there's something else you need to know. I dug deeper into Brian and Jessica's past. Her voice darkened. This isn't their first time. My pulse quickened. What had they done before? And who else had they hurt? I sat down, Emily curled up beside me, and braced for the truth that would unravel everything. The air in my Sarasota apartment felt heavy, thick with the weight of betrayal. Emily slept on my couch, her small suitcase tucked beside her, a painful reminder of how Brian and Jessica had used her to guilt me. The $100,000 home equity loan, the $50,000 in fraudulent credit cards, and their lies about my supposed dementia had already gutted me. But Susan's call that evening, her voice low and urgent, promised to unravel something even darker. Maggie, she said, I've been digging into Brian and Jessica's past. This isn't their first time pulling something like this. My heart thudded, a mix of dread and fury. I gripped the phone, bracing for a truth that would make their betrayal look like child's play. What did you find? I asked, my voice barely steady. Susan didn't sugarcoat it. 10 years ago, Jessica lived with her Aunt Clara in Tampa. Clara was 82, sharp as a tack, living independently with $150,000 in savings and a paid-off house. Jessica moved in after Clara's minor hip surgery, claiming she'd help. Within a year, Clara was in a nursing home, diagnosed with dementia, and Jessica had power of attorney. By the time Clara died, her savings were gone, her house sold, and Jessica walked away with everything. My blood ran cold. They never proved fraud, Susan continued, because Clara's family didn't push for an investigation, but the pattern's identical: move in, isolate, drain the accounts, claim mental decline. I sank onto a chair, the room spinning. Jessica wasn't just a liar. She was a predator, and Brian was her willing accomplice. Then came the call that cracked my world open. Rachel Evans, Jessica's estranged sister from Orlando, reached out at 9 p.m., her voice trembling with guilt. "Maggie, I saw the news about the charges against Jessica and Brian. I need to tell you something. I'd met Rachel once, years ago, at Brian and Jessica's wedding. She'd been distant, barely speaking to her sister, and now I knew why. 10 years ago," Rachel said, "Jessica did this to our Aunt Clara. I tried to warn the family, but no one listened. She convinced everyone Clara was losing it. Forgetful. Erratic. But Clara was fine until Jessica moved in. Then her bank accounts emptied, and she was shipped off to a nursing home." Rachel's voice broke. "I kept Clara's old bank records, the signatures on her loans. They match the ones on your $100,000 home equity loan. Jessica forged them all." I clutched the phone, my rage boiling over. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I demanded. Rachel's sigh was heavy. "I thought Jessica had changed when she married Brian. I didn't know they'd target you until I saw the news. Maggie, there's more. Jessica bragged to me last week, said you'd forced their hand by fighting back. They'd planned to wait longer before filing for guardianship, but your hospital stay made them rush." Guardianship. The word hit like a slap. Susan had warned me about the elder law inquiries, but this was worse. "They recorded your voicemails, Maggie," Rachel said. "The ones where you sounded confused or upset. They took photos of you looking tired at family dinners, built a file to prove you're incompetent. They even paid a neighbor to say you've been acting strange." Mace. The betrayal sank deeper, a knife twisting in my chest. They'd weaponized my grief, my exhaustion, my love for Emily, all to paint me as a senile old woman. I thought of the times I'd called Brian, my voice shaky after a sleepless night, asking why they hadn't visited. They'd saved those calls, twisted them into evidence. I thought of Emily's 13th birthday party, the one I wasn't invited to, and how they'd told everyone I was too demanding. It wasn't just about money. They wanted to erase my autonomy, my voice, my life. "Rachel," I said, my voice hard as steel. "Will you testify? Will you send those bank records?" She didn't hesitate. "I'm overnighting them to your lawyer." "Maggie, I'm so sorry I didn't act sooner." I hung up, my hands trembling with a fury I could barely contain. Brian and Jessica weren't just thieves. They were architects of a decade-long scheme, preying on the vulnerable, and I was their latest mark. But they'd underestimated me. I wasn't Clara, too trusting to fight back. I was Maggie Thompson, and I'd tear their lies apart. As I sat there, Emily stirred on the couch, her innocent face a reminder of what was at stake. I called Susan. "Those records from Rachel?" I said. "Use them, and find out if there's anyone else they've hurt." Susan's voice was grim. "I'm already on it, Maggie. But brace yourself. What we're uncovering might go deeper than you think." I hung up, my resolve hardening. The truth was coming, and it would burn everything they'd built to the ground. The Sarasota County Courthouse loomed like a fortress of truth as I stepped inside, my heart pounding but my resolve unshaken. The weight of Brian and Jessica's betrayal, the $100,000 home equity loan, the $50,000 in fraudulent credit cards, their lies about my dementia, and Rachel's chilling revelation about their past scam against Aunt Clara had fueled me for weeks. Today, I'd face them in court, not as the drama queen they'd mocked, but as Maggie Thompson, a mother who'd been pushed too far. Emily sat beside me, her small hand clutching mine, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. Susan Hayes, my attorney, stood ready, her briefcase stuffed with evidence, bank records, forged signatures, and Rachel's damning testimony. This was it, the moment their house of lies would collapse. The courtroom was cold, the wooden benches hard under me as Brian and Jessica entered. Brian's face was pale, his usual confidence replaced by a nervous twitch. Jessica's eyes darted, avoiding mine. Her designer purse nowhere in sight, probably sold to cover legal fees. The judge called the case, and Susan laid out the evidence with surgical precision. The $150,000 stolen through fraudulent accounts, the intercepted mail, the elder law inquiries to declare me incompetent. Rachel's testimony about Aunt Clara's drained savings sealed the narrative. Brian and Jessica were serial predators. I watched their faces crumble as the truth unfolded, no longer hidden behind Instagram filters or fake concern. When it was my turn to speak, I stood, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "Brian," I said, looking straight at my son, "you sat at my table after Dad's funeral, promising to protect me. Instead, you stole $150,000, left me alone in a hospital, and told the world I was losing my mind. Jessica, you called me a drama queen while spending my money on Bahamas cruises and designer bags. You used my granddaughter as a pawn to guilt me. Family doesn't do that." Brian's eyes dropped, but Jessica snapped. "We were helping you, Maggie. That money went to household expenses." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Household expenses? Like the $10,000 yacht club membership? Or the $5,000 handbag you bought while I was in the ER? You're not victims. You're thieves. No. The judge's gavel silenced the room. Brian pleaded guilty to identity theft, fraud, and elder abuse, his voice barely audible. The sentence: 3 years in prison and full restitution of $120,000, funded by selling their luxury SUV and garnishing future wages. Jessica got 2 years of probation, her lawyer arguing she'd followed Brian's lead. But Rachel's testimony about Aunt Clara made that excuse hollow. The courtroom victory wasn't the end. Susan had pushed for a separate custody hearing, and the evidence of Emily's abandonment was undeniable. They'd left her with friends for weeks, including during their $10,000 Bahamas trip, while claiming to be caring for family. The judge's voice was firm. "Mrs. Thompson, you are granted temporary custody of Emily, effective immediately." Emily squeezed my hand, tears in her eyes, but this time they were relief, not fear. As we left the courthouse, Brian called out, "Mom, please, we're still family." I turned, my voice cold as steel. Family doesn't steal $150,000 and call it love, Brian. Family doesn't abandon a 1-3-year-old for vacations. You made your choices. Jessica stood silent, her face a mask of defeat. I took Emily's hand and walked away, the weight of their betrayal lifting with each step. The house on Palm Avenue had sold the week before, for $420,000 cash, to a young couple who'd never know the lies it had held. The money was a lifeline, but the real victory was Emily, safe with me, and the truth laid bare for all to see. Susan caught up with us outside, her voice urgent. "Maggie, the DA's office isn't done. They're digging into other potential victims of Brian and Jessica's schemes. This case might get bigger." My heart skipped. Other victims? The thought that their trail of destruction extended beyond me and Aunt Clara was chilling, but it also steeled my resolve. I looked at Emily, her face bright with hope for the first time in months. "Whatever comes next," I told Susan, "we'll face it together. But first, I'm taking my granddaughter home." We'd won this battle, but the war wasn't over. It was time to rebuild, not just for us, but for anyone else they'd hurt. The sun set slowly over my new home in Naples, Florida, casting a warm glow across the porch where Emily and I sit, sharing a plate of homemade cookies. It's been 6 months since the courtroom battle that exposed Brian and Jessica's betrayal, the $150,000 they stole, the lies about my dementia, their decade-long history of preying on the vulnerable. Starting with Aunt Clara, Emily, now 13, is thriving in her new school, her laughter filling the 3-bedroom house Robert's life insurance secured for us. The pain of their deception still lingers, but it's quieter now, softened by the peace we've built. I volunteer at the Naples Elder Advocacy Center, helping others spot the red flags of financial abuse, red flags I missed for too long. At 65, I've learned a truth I wish I'd known sooner. Love doesn't mean blind trust, and family isn't a free pass to exploit. To anyone over 60 listening, hear this. Check your credit report every month. Watch for mail redirection, unexplained charges, or family members pushing you to the sidelines. Set boundaries, even with those you love most. Trust is a gift, but it must be earned, not demanded. I ignored those signs, thinking I was being a good mother, and it cost me $150,000 and years of my dignity. But I fought back not just for me, but for Emily, for Aunt Clara, and for every senior who's been made to feel invisible. You're not a drama queen for standing up. You're a survivor. If my story resonates, please drop a like, share your own experience in the comments, and join us on the Unwanted Revenge by subscribing. Your voice matters, and together, we can shine a light on the shadows of betrayal. Thank you for listening.